What if the most dangerous weapon in a modern naval conflict wasn't an aircraft carrier, or a ballistic missile, but something so small it could disappear beneath a fishing boat? Right now, beneath the warm, crowded waters of the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most strategically important waterways, naval planners on every side understand a simple reality. In shallow seas, size is not always an advantage. Sometimes the greatest threat is the vessel that is hardest to detect. The Strait of Hormuz is more than a narrow passage connecting the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. It is one of the world's most critical energy corridors. A significant share of internationally crude oil and liquefied natural gas passes through this channel every day. Any prolonged disruption would ripple far beyond the Middle East, affecting shipping costs, fuel prices, insurance markets, and financial confidence across multiple continents. That reality has shaped military planning for decades. While diplomatic negotiations often focus on D-minus escalation in maritime security, naval forces prepare for a very different possibility. Their job is to assume that every promise could fail and every crisis could escalate. In that world, attention quickly turns beneath the surface. Unlike the giant nuclear submarines operated by major naval powers, Iran invested heavily in a very different concept. Its Ghadir-class submarines are compact coastal vessels designed specifically for operations in confined, shallow waters. Measuring less than 100 feet in length and operated by crews of only a handful of sailors, they weren't ever intended to compete with large blue-water submarines roaming the Atlantic or Pacific. Instead, they were built for one environment: the Persian Gulf. At first glance, their size appears to be a disadvantage. In reality, it is their greatest strength. The average depth of large sections of the Strait of Hormuz is surprisingly shallow compared to the deep oceans where American nuclear submarines typically operate. Large submarines rely on deep water to maximize concealment, taking advantage of temperature layers and vast underwater spaces that complicate sonar tracking. The Persian Gulf offers almost none of those advantages. Its warm temperatures, limited depth, heavy commercial traffic, and constant background noise create an entirely different underwater environment. For a miniature submarine specifically designed for coastal warfare, those conditions can actually improve survivability. Military analysts have long noted that when a small diesel-electric submarine shuts down its engines and settles quietly on the seabed, detecting it becomes dramatically more difficult. Sonar operators must distinguish between countless natural and artificial sounds merchant vessels, fishing boats, underwater terrain, marine life, shifting currents, and thousands of other acoustic signatures. Finding a stationary submarine in that environment is far more complicated than many people imagine. That challenge has made compact submarines an attractive option for countries seeking asymmetric naval capabilities. Rather than matching larger Navy ship for ship, they seek to create uncertainty. Even a relatively small submarine force can devote enormous resources to anti-mine submarine operations, slowing movement and complicating planning long before any weapon is actually fired. This philosophy has influenced Iranian naval development for decades. Western defense analysts generally agree that Iran developed these coastal submarines with one objective above all others: making any attempt to control the Strait of Hormuz more expensive, more complicated, and far more unpredictable. Their missions extend beyond launching torpedoes. Depending on configuration, small coastal submarines can deploy naval mines, insert special operations divers, conduct reconnaissance, or threaten commercial shipping routes. Even the possibility that such vessels are operating nearby can force merchant ships to reroute while insurance companies rapidly increase shipping premiums. Sometimes uncertainty itself becomes a strategic weapon. But modern naval warfare is no longer simply a contest between submarines and surface ships. It has become a contest between concealment and detection. For every effort to hide beneath the ocean, another effort exists to find what is hidden. That technological race has accelerated dramatically over the past 20 years. Today's anti-mine submarine forces no longer depend on a single sonar operator listening through headphones aboard a destroyer. Instead, they rely on an integrated network of aircraft, satellites, underwater sensors, autonomous vehicles, surface combatants, helicopters, and attack submarines, all sharing information continuously. Each individual system may only detect a fragment of the picture. Together, they build something far more powerful: a constantly updated map of the underwater battlespace. One of the most important components of that network is the P-8 Poseidon, a maritime patrol aircraft derived from the Boeing 737 airliner, but extensively modified for anti-mine submarine warfare. From high above the Gulf, the aircraft can deploy large numbers of sonar buoys floating acoustic sensors that drift with ocean currents while listening for underwater activity. Some listen passively. Others actively transmit sound pulses and analyze returning echoes. Together they create temporary listening fields covering enormous areas of ocean. But the aircraft is far more than simply drop sensors. Its radar monitors surface traffic. Its electronic surveillance equipment searches for communications and radar emissions. Its onboard computers compare new information with enormous databases built over years of routine patrols. Military planners often emphasize that understanding what is normal is just as important as detecting what is unusual. When surveillance aircraft repeatedly observe the same shipping lanes, fishing activity, environmental conditions, and commercial traffic day after day, unexpected changes become much easier to recognize. Patterns matter. A vessel appearing where none should be. An area suddenly becoming unusually quiet. A shipping lane behaving differently from historical norms. Individually, those observations may seem insignificant. Combined, they can reveal the early signs of military activity long before direct confirmation becomes possible. Yet aircraft represent only one layer of a much larger system. Below the surface, autonomous underwater vehicles are beginning to play an increasingly important role. Unlike traditional submarines, these unmanned systems can remain in carefully selected areas for extended periods, quietly collecting acoustic and environmental data without placing human crews at risk. Some experimental platforms are designed primarily for surveillance rather than attack. Their purpose is simple. Listen. Record. If unusual underwater activity develops, that information can be transmitted to nearby naval forces, allowing manned platforms to investigate while minimizing unnecessary exposure. The result is a surveillance architecture that grows more sophisticated every year. For nations hoping to conceal submarines in crowded coastal waters, remaining undetected has become increasingly difficult. And as both sides continue investing in quieter submarines and more advanced detection technologies, the underwater contest beneath the Strait of Hormuz remains one of the least visible but potentially most consequential competitions in modern military strategy. Yet surveillance alone does not control a strategic waterway. Finding a submarine is only the beginning. The real challenge is maintaining continuous awareness while preventing it from slipping away again. That is why modern anti-Midas submarine warfare no longer depends on any single platform. Instead, it operates as a layered system in which aircraft, surface ships, helicopters, attack submarines, satellites, and autonomous underwater vehicles constantly exchange information. Each sensor fills gaps left by another, gradually reducing the areas where a submarine can remain hidden. Surface combatants play a central role in this network. Modern destroyers equipped with advanced combat systems tow long sonar arrays hundreds of feet behind the ship. These passive sensors are designed to detect the faint mechanical sounds produced by underwater vessels' propeller vibrations, electrical equipment, pumps, and countless tiny acoustic signatures that no crew can completely eliminate. Unlike active sonar, which broadcasts powerful sound pulses that immediately reveal the searcher's location, passive systems simply listen. In underwater warfare, silence often provides the greatest advantage. At the same time, helicopters operating from those destroyers dramatically extend the fleet's reach. Aircraft such as the MH-60 or Seahawk can arrive over suspected contact within minutes, lowering dipping sonar directly into the water to investigate areas identified by other sensors. Because helicopters move far faster than surface ships, they allow naval commanders to respond quickly before a submarine changes position. If multiple platforms begin reporting the same contact, confidence grows. One aircraft may detect unusual acoustic activity. A destroyer may identify a corresponding sonar signature. An underwater drone may observe movement along the seabed. Individually, none of those observations guarantees a submarine is present. Together, they create a picture that becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. This is how modern anti-Midas submarine operations are fought, not through dramatic moments of instant discovery, but through the gradual accumulation of evidence. Information becomes the decisive weapon. Attack submarines provide another critical layer. Unlike large surface vessels, submarines operate inside the same environment as their targets. Their crews spend years learning to interpret tiny acoustic differences that most people would never notice. A slight variation in propeller rhythm, an unexpected electrical frequency, a brief change in underwater background noise. These seemingly insignificant details can reveal movement long before visual confirmation is possible. For experienced submarine commanders, patience often matters more than speed. Remaining undetected while quietly tracking an opponent can provide far greater strategic value than launching weapons immediately. That philosophy reflects a broader reality of naval warfare. The objective is not always destruction. Often it is control. If the submarine knows it has been located, its options become increasingly limited. Every attempt to relocate risks creating additional noise. Every communication risks interception. Every maneuver increases the chance of revealing its position to another sensor waiting somewhere nearby. As a result, the psychological pressure placed upon submarine crews can become enormous. Unlike pilots or infantry, submariners cannot simply step outside and observe the battlefield. They operate inside a sealed steel hull, relying entirely on instruments while knowing that hostile forces may already be tracking them. Uncertainty becomes part of daily life. This psychological dimension has existed since the earliest days of submarine warfare. Naval historians frequently note that successful anti-minus submarine campaigns rely not only on sinking enemy submarines, but also on convincing their crews that remaining at sea has become increasingly dangerous. Once that confidence disappears, operational effectiveness begins to decline. Throughout history, maritime powers have repeatedly demonstrated that controlling sea lanes involves far more than naval battles. Commercial shipping depends upon predictability. If insurance companies judge a shipping route too dangerous, premiums rise dramatically. Shipping companies believe delays are unavoidable. Vessels choose alternative routes whenever possible. Even temporary uncertainty can affect energy markets, commodity prices, and global supply chains long before any major engagement occurs. That is precisely why the Strait of Hormuz receives so much international attention. Its strategic importance extends well beyond the nations bordering its coastline. Energy producers, importing economies, shipping companies, financial institutions, military alliances, all have a direct interest in ensuring that traffic continues moving safely through one of the world's busiest maritime corridors. Consequently, maintaining stability in the region has become an international priority rather than the responsibility of any single country. Military planners understand that preventing disruption is often easier than restoring order after a crisis begins. For that reason, surveillance patrols, multinational naval exercises, intelligence sharing, and continuous maritime presence have become routine features of the Gulf. The goal is straightforward: reduce uncertainty, increase visibility, deter escalation before conflict reaches the point where force becomes necessary. Yet beneath this competition lies a broader lesson about modern warfare. Technological superiority no longer guarantees absolute dominance. Small, inexpensive systems can still create significant operational challenges for much larger militaries. At the same time, advanced sensor networks increasingly limit the ability of those smaller systems to remain hidden indefinitely. Both sides continuously adapt. Every improvement in stealth encourages new investment in detection. Every advance in surveillance encourages new approaches to concealment. The cycle never truly ends. What emerges is not a contest between strong and weak. It is a contest between observation and deception, between those attempting to disappear and those determined to ensure nothing remains invisible for long. The Strait of Hormuz represents one of the clearest examples of that competition unfolding in real time. Far below the surface, beyond the view of satellites or cameras, some of the world's most sophisticated military technologies quietly compete every day without a single shot being fired. Most people crossing the Gulf by commercial ship will never notice it. Most aircraft flying overhead reveal nothing unusual. The ocean appears calm. Trade continues. Energy flows. Markets open. Yet beneath that ordinary surface lies an invisible contest that influences global commerce far more than many realize. Because in the 21st century, naval power is no longer defined solely by the number of ships a nation possesses. It is measured by something far less visible. Who can see first? Who can remain hidden longest? And who controls the information flowing beneath the waves? In the end, the future of maritime security may depend less on spectacular naval battles than on an endless contest between sensors, algorithms, autonomous systems, and the people operating the man-utter competition where silence is often more powerful than firepower, and where the side that understands the ocean best may never need to fire the first shot at all.